Blog Talk Radio.
Well, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm the host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And we're in trying times, Dr. Lopkin. As soon as we started the podcast, actually our inaugural day was a day of despair, and it hasn't changed, has it?
No, we're dealing with circumstances that nobody could have foreseen. And certainly nobody our age has seen this in our lifetime.
Never. Yes, it is horrific. And could you give the number out if people would like to call in?
Yeah, if you'd like to be part of the conversation, whether it's about COVID-19, politics, the economy, or anything else, give us a call at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, to me it's very sad, I have to be honest with you, that, and we talked about it on our radio show, that you knew people that never worked or haven't worked, talented people. They were older, they were, various situations. They were all back to work. That has ended, correct?
Yes, we're seeing unprecedented unemployment numbers right now.
Depressionary numbers.
Although you do have to remember that the unemployment numbers include furloughed workers, and the intention of most companies is to hire them back once this is all over. So we're talking about a large number of people who are unemployed, but it's a lot more of a temporary situation than it has been in the past.
Okay, that's obviously very huge. Now, how has it changed society, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, certainly a lot more
society
people are working at home. Well, we'll see if it changed forever. I can see where it can, but I can also see where, quite frankly, we tend to have very short memories and revert back to things that the way we've been doing things, or even maybe the way we shouldn't have been doing things, but we do tend to revert back. So we'll see if some of these changes really take hold. I certainly think you're going to see an increase in people working remotely. You're going to see a big change in how business is done. I think people are going to be more prepared in the future than they were because, again, let's face it, nobody could have predicted this was going to happen. Now that it's happened, it's on everybody's mind. So I think people are going to go, well, but what if that happens again? And they'll actually be more prepared for something like this.
What impact do you think it has on the political landscape?
I think at this point it really depends on when we reopen the country. If we reopen the country around June, then by the time November rolls around, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact. If it opens much later, say September, then it's going to favor the Democrats because, people are going to blame Trump for not bringing the economy back.
I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with that 100%. Now, yes. What do you think in terms of politically? What do you think Biden? I think Biden has kind of been in the weeds, and I wonder about that. He hasn't really capitalized on it, has he?
Well, no, I think he's capitalized quite well on it. Every time Biden opens his mouth, his poll numbers go down. So he's stayed quiet and in the background, and that actually works to his favor.
Okay, I would agree with that to some degree. I think you're 100% right with everything you said in terms of how long this lasts. Now, something I heard that's very interesting I'd like to comment on. What about, in other words, we owe China $10 trillion, whatever it is. What do we say? Will this cost us $7 trillion? We're not paying you $7 trillion of it. What do you think of that, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about issuing 30, 40, even 50-year bonds and recapitalizing all of our debt. And the thing is, if we do that now, because interest rates are at historic lows, and there has shown that there's demand still for U.S. bonds, it's actually going to cut what we owe tremendously.
Yeah, but how about the whole point of, like, China? It's your fault, okay? It's your fault. It's cost us 5, 6, 8, who knows, $10 trillion. We're cutting that out of what we owe you.
I don't think they'll do that. I think what you will see is we already started seeing, because of the trade war, a lot of companies moving their supply chains out of China. You're definitely going to see a lot more redundancies in supply chains. So even the companies that keep factories in China are going to be having factories elsewhere, so they're not held hostage when something like this happens. And
yes,
that's going to be very detrimental to China's economy, which before all of this was actually fairly precarious.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's not just the United States. I think it's the entire Western world is recalibrating on that. Do you agree?
Oh, yes. European companies, European governments have all started looking at how we cannot rely on China as a supply chain.
Well, what do you think of the whole fact that they started it? Should there be repercussions for that? They're the ones who started this mess. And they lied. And the World Health Organization lied.
Well, China and the World Health Organization are two separate issues. China, yes, the totalitarian communist government of China lied to make themselves look bad. Okay, if there's anybody to make themselves look better, excuse me. If there's anybody that's actually surprised by this, you should be standing on your head, because this is what China does. We should expect this from them. The World Health Organization, now, I'll be perfectly honest, I have never had a lot of faith or trust in the World Health Organization, and I'll explain to you why. They use their own metrics to describe things. And it first came to my attention in some of their cancer studies. And because of the way they rank risk, sunlight has the same risk of cancer as radioactive waste.
Oh, God.
Okay, so this, and you can look this up. I mean, this is well known because it's how they measure risk. So if you're using metrics that are that bad, you can't be trusted on any of this data.
Well, let's talk about metrics that have been that bad. It's horrific what we're going through. But they predicted 200,000. I mean, I was watching TV, and they said 200,000 deaths. I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Like, World War II, American casualties were only like, when I say only, I mean, were 250,000. This is like World War, and now it's 60. What do you think of that? We shut down an economy for that, didn't we, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, we did. The basic problem is...
Did we overreact?
I don't think we overreacted, but I think we reacted badly.
How?
Everything we did, we needed to do. but it should not have been rolled out state by state. And certainly the states in the Northeast reacted way too slowly. Had we actually done the entire social distancing all at once and quarantined New York City, New Jersey, parts of Connecticut, this whole thing could have been over, by this week. But we reacted too slowly. When Trump said he was going to quarantine the hot spots, the governors of those states fought back, saying, oh, no, you're not allowed to do it. You can't do it. Actually, legal experts have said, yes, he does have the right to quarantine the areas. And we had individuals that were absolute morons. You have had pastors who were having services of over 100 people saying the government can't shut down the church because that violates freedom of religion. And, of course, because the pastors did this, these areas now became hot spots. If people had taken
well, you know what's interesting about that, Dr. Lopkin?
Good.
Do you know what's interesting, Dr. Lopkin, is, and I didn't know it, I was watching it with a friend of mine, the Super Bowl and the national championship, in retrospect, might have been really, really, really bad.
It's possible, yes. They're now saying that they found evidence of COVID-19 in New York City in early February. It came here from Europe, not from China. So that means China had to have had it, because we do know that was the starting point, had to have had it probably November or December at the latest. It then went from there to Europe because there's a lot of supply chains and a lot of travel between Asia and Europe. It then went from Europe to here. So all of this started a lot earlier than we expected.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at the economy.
But if China had actually been open about all of this and said in November what was going on there, we might have been able to avoid this, quarantine China, and have kept it there.
Yeah, that didn't happen. The economy, we're looking at depression, not recession, depressionary unemployment, aren't we?
Well, I mean, it's similar to the Great Depression, but technically it's actually still a recession. Depression doesn't actually have a set number of standards that we've met yet. The Fed chief actually came out this week and said, once we beat the virus and we actually have a treatment and the spread has slowed, the economy will actually bounce back stronger than most people expect.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the treatments, because I think you're correct. Let's talk about treatments, and maybe you can give the number if people would like to call in.
Yeah, if you want to call in and be part of the conversation, you can call us in at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
I think it's all about the treatments. If we get some treatments that are viable, I believe you are correct, Dr. Lopkin, the economy bounces back. If this thing is in limbo, let's say in September, September, October, we're in big trouble. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, the faster we find a treatment, the faster we'll get back to a fully open economy. Fortunately, right now, there are a number of treatments being used to people who have already been infected. These treatments have been very effective. One of them is chloroquine, which is a malaria drug. There's a couple of other drugs that have been being used that seem to be very effective. They have not gone through full clinical trials. They got permission from the FDA to use for this off-label purpose, but they do show promise. This week, though, the FDA fast-tracked a new drug into clinical trials. And this, so far what it seems to be is that this not only cures you if you catch it, but it also acts as a preventative. So if you take it as a healthy person, it prevents you from getting COVID-19. Now, this is still in very early clinical trials, so we don't know how that's going to come, but it's definitely very promising.
Interesting. I think that's really the key to really all of this.
Before we go on, we need to take a quick break and go to our sponsors.
You got it?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
All right, and we're back. And if you want to be part of the conversation, if you want to be part of the conversation, you can call us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
What do you give Trump in terms of how he handled this overall?
Honestly, he handled it average. It was not great. It was not horrible.
I give him a B, too. I give him a B. A B.
I think a B is fair. His communications has been poor. His actions have been good. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of politicalization of all of this. The Senate and the administration were trying to get more money put in for small business and stimulus, and just this week the Democrats blocked that. So there's still politics as usual going on, and that unfortunately has held things back. People have said a lot about how bad the stimulus rollout was this week, how hard it was for small businesses to get the promised loans, to get the information. And my response to this was, well, of course it was bad. It's the government. When we rolled out Obamacare, the rollout was horrible. When we rolled out the 2009 stimulus, the rollout was horrible. When we reorganized into the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11, the rollout was horrible. Government is not good when it has to do something new.
I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with that. Now, speaking of politics, Bernie has dropped out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Bernie dropped out. He realized there was no way for him to win the nomination. He couldn't hold events to rally folks. And he was getting a lot of criticism for bringing the party down. And a lot of them are saying, well, they were blaming Bernie for Hillary losing in 2016. And they were saying, well, he's doing the same thing again. If we can't get him out of the race, we're going to lose again. Now, quite frankly, I think that's putting a lot of giving Bernie a lot of credit in 2016 that he doesn't deserve. I don't think Hillary's loss had that much to do with him. I think it had to do with how bad a candidate Hillary was. But it's a sign that the mainstream Democratic Party and the folks at the head are desperately trying to unite the party for the election.
Yes, I do think I heard a commentary. We've talked about this before. I think Bernie is a happy loser. I think he's never, the guy never worked until he was 40. Then he got his, mayor of town in Vermont, blah, 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 congressional, then senatorial. He's never been better. He's fine with all this. I mean, he's all good. I mean, he's not like, like Hillary never got over losing. She literally probably saw a psychologist. I mean, I'm really not even kidding you about her loss. I think Bernie he's never been better. He's worth $3 million now. He'll be worth $10 million with all the speaking engagement. He's fine.
Oh yeah, Bernie's profile has never been higher. And this all worked out very well for him. And quite frankly, I don't think it would have worked as well for him had he actually won and become president. The simple fact of the matter is, my wife and I had gone out to Sam's Club to pick up supplies. And to do this, we got there early. We had to stand on a line for a while. You know, they're only letting in a few at a time. And there were a lot of, food shortages that have been going around. And I said to her, this is a preview of what would have happened to America if Bernie's policies had actually been implemented.
Oh, no, I agree. I think that he enjoys the podium. I think he's fine for losing. And believe me, he's not like Hillary never got over it. Do you agree with that?
Oh, no, Hillary definitely did not get over it. She's
Bernie is fine.
Making excuses. I saw a video that she had done not too long ago where she's still making excuses about why she lost. She has not gotten over it, and she still refuses to take responsibility for her own mistakes.
I would agree 100% with that. Politically, many, months ago, seems forever, we gave Trump a 70% chance of winning. What do you think now?
Right now, I think because Biden is further to the center than the other candidates were, and because of what's going on with COVID-19, I've got him at about 60%.
I got him at like 55.
Yeah, I think if the economy bounces back well, his odds go back up. If everything, goes back to a semblance of normal, it'll go back up. And I think, quite frankly, once Joe Biden starts talking again, and if they have to debate, that's where Trump is going to look better, because Biden's debate performances have been horrible. Every time he opens his mouth, he makes another gaffe. He says something else that, people go, oh, my God. And the fact of the matter is, if the economy bounces back, and it doesn't have to bounce back to where it was before COVID-19, all it has to do is bounce back to where it was, I would say, 6 to 12 months into the Trump presidency. If it bounces back better than it was under Obama, Trump can actually just beat him over the head with that.
Okay, now what do you think the odds are? Because I agree with you 100% with your analysis. What do you think the odds of that happening are?
Actually, from what I've heard from economists and what the Fed chief said this week, the odds of that happening are pretty strong.
Really?
They're all actually saying that what we have is extreme short-term pain, but the underlying economy is actually stronger than people realize, because, again, it's very difficult to see past the short-term pain because it's hitting so many people and it's so extreme. But, again, it comes down to, do we beat the virus? If we beat the virus and we reopen the country, things will rebound quicker than people are anticipating. At least that's what, again, the Fed chief said, a number of economists have said. And, the University of Washington came out with a new study saying that, the numbers of fatalities, the numbers of people being infected are actually going to be lower than what we had been predicting.
Okay, so how did that happen? Because, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, you were looking at 200,000 casualties. It's going to be lower than 60. That's horrific. I got it. And I think if you get this, it's not the flu. It's not good at all. What happened? They were wrong, weren't they?
Well, they were wrong because we had bad data going in, or actually more precisely, it wasn't that the data was bad, it was that the data was insufficient. We didn't have enough testing kits to get a good idea of how many people were actually being infected. And because we didn't know that, we were looking at a much lower number of people that we thought were infected. And therefore, that made it look like a much higher percentage of people were actually dying from this and having severe reactions. As it is, again, 80% of the people that are getting this don't even need to be hospitalized. 75% of the people who are hospitalized are recovering fine so far. And then you have the severe cases, which is what everybody's been hearing about. But because we didn't have good testing data, we assumed the worst, which, I mean, you can make a case for it's better to overestimate than underestimate. But quite frankly, I would rather see us use good data and actually do neither.
Yes. I found it very interesting in terms of 60. I think it's actually going to be lower than that. Was it worth shutting down the economy, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, I think it was worth shutting down the economy because that's actually what has lowered the number. If we did not do the social distancing, if we had not worn masks and stayed away from each other, the numbers would have been much higher because there would have been many more people infected.
Yes, I would agree. Who's to blame for all this in the end?
You know what? There's enough blame to go around. Certainly, a lot of it goes to China. A lot of it goes to local politicians like Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, who cut 20,000 hospital beds out of the hospitals before all of this happened. You could lay
de Blasio's worse. Cuomo's Cuomo. De Blasio is despicable.
But de Blasio
he was actually, this is
incompetent.
xenophobia, whatever it was. What's that? Go ahead.
De Blasio has been completely incompetent. He didn't close down the city fast enough. He didn't close down the schools fast enough. He gets a lot of the blame for the virus getting out of New York and affecting the local areas around it.
Yeah, but how come now all of a sudden he's the one blaming Trump? He's the one who screwed up.
Oh, he has to blame Trump because otherwise he has to accept the blame himself.
True.
That part of it is all, the blame part of it is all political at this point. The fact of the matter is the governors did not handle it well. The mayors of these hot spots did not handle it well. They decided to pass the buck to the federal government, and quite frankly, they should have been the first responders. They are the ones that were on the front lines and should have done this right away.
It's interesting. I think Lamont has become out as a superstar after all this.
Well, I mean, he hasn't done so well either. He should have. He's been a big whiner in a lot of this, not really doing much. I think one of the things that's really important is we're also finding how behind the times the states are. Both New Jersey and Connecticut are looking to hire people because they have to update their unemployment systems to handle the new regulations. Well, the problem is none of these systems have been updated in 40 years. They're all written in COBOL, and it's very hard to find programmers in COBOL because nobody uses it anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. That was a very, 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 very big problem. Any final thoughts on all of this, Dr. Lopkin?
Right now, we're still taking it day by day. Things do look better, but you still have to stay at home, still do social distancing, because if we go back to normal too fast, it's all going to start up again.
Is this going to kick back in the fall? What do you think?
And we're actually just hitting a hard stop for us. You can catch us every Friday at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio and hear the replays at the Apple Podcast Store, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and wherever you find podcasts.
Thanks, Dr. Lopkin.